our brains have one primary function, which is to keep us alive. And the way the brain works is that it likes to keep things that are stable, predictable, and reliable. And it sends signals to us to avoid anything that's risky, unknown, unproven, right? So that's kind of the way, for 50 million years, we've been conditioned. And so what happens then is anything that looks unfamiliar, right? In the old days, it may be, a lion coming to chase you. But suddenly the brain sends signals to say, well, this is not good. We need to do something about it. And so it starts to send hormones that get our blood pumping or our body racing, muscles tightening to battle that lion or tiger, except now it's these social or occupational challenges, right? So the thing is this, when it comes to being resilient or to become mentally stronger, is that these threats are always going to happen. And now, more so now in this current pandemic era where so much uncertainty, it's almost like on a daily basis, there's something new that's challenging us, okay?
Yeah.
What happens is, let's say if you take an antelope in the savannah, right? Let's say a lion suddenly pops out of nowhere and chases you. The hormones get triggered. You start to outsprint the lion. And normally lions, they only try for 20, 30 seconds. So if you can outsprint the lion for 20, 30 seconds, you're good, because the lion goes, oh, I'm too tired, I'm going to give up, right? And the cool thing about an antelope is, let's say the lion's only 50 meters away, you can still see the lion, but you can see the lion's exhausted. The stress just goes away and the antelope can just start grazing again, right? So the ability to let that stress go was a big part. Humans, unfortunately, have developed something called memory, where in order to kind of, in a way, protect us from future threats, we develop something called memory that says, oh, the threat might not be there, but it may come. I'm already tense and my heart's already racing and my palms are sweaty to get ready for a threat that may or may not come, right?
Yeah.
And the problem for some of us is that when these videos in our head go around about these future potential threats that we can't let go, we can't pause, after many days, that's when it starts to even affect our physiology, because the same hormones that are meant to keep us alive for that 1 minute showdown sprint with the lion has now been going nonstop for 14 days, right? What happens suddenly is you develop high blood pressure, right? You develop conditions because your immune system gets impaired, right? And that's not good in a time right now where we need our immune system very strong against these viral threats. And so therefore, how do we then try to reduce or allow us to be able to let go of these videos that are playing in our heads over and over again? For some people, literally it's years long, right? Like either something has happened in the past and they just cannot stop having that video playing in their head, maybe childhood trauma, something happened, or right, they're so deeply concerned about something in the future, right? Like, am I going to lose my job? Who's going to take care of my family, right? Like these things keep a lot of people up at night. They lose sleep. They lose their ability to eat healthily, right? And therefore the physical body gets affected. So if we understand that as a baseline, therefore resilience is not about, like the crayon, right? Not about avoiding those risks, those threats, but when they come, we deal with it, but then we're able to self-regulate. We're able to sort of kind of normalize and then get ready for the next one, right? And so there are different practices that we can train our body to be more resilient, right? There are physical things that we do, and there are also sort of in a way mental things that we do to become more resilient. So first, I want to dispel that myth that somehow it's like you do one thing and suddenly everything goes well, right? Because it's a big roller coaster. There are moments that you feel positive and there are moments that you feel completely down, even right now, right? But a few things come up. One of the biggest mindset shifts is moving from thinking about me and woe is me and these are all the problems that are happening to me to thinking about someone else, right? Somehow, even when it comes to people dealing with depression, right? One of the best ways to get out of that feeling is instead of focusing on yourself is to think, well, maybe I can't help myself. What can I do to help someone else? And the moment we start to reposition and think about someone else, right? Somehow there's a new level of energy that comes out, right? And so no matter how difficult that circumstance was for me, if I then start to frame on things like, well, maybe, there might be a chance where I might never be able to walk again. But what are things that I can do to help other people, right? So framing that as a first instance is important. Okay, so for me, as I said, one was the common thread of looking at problems where the mass market don't have access to services that people who are more privileged have, right? And the reason why this was important to me was because 8 years ago, 9 years maybe, to 2011, I lost my own father to cancer and diabetes. He had both conditions. And in hindsight now, what I realized is that the whole healthcare system was only focused on taking care of his physical health, right? Medication this, chemo that, do this, do that, right? Go back and then come back again for the follow-up medical checkup 2 months later. But when someone has to deal with chronic conditions, be it cancer or diabetes or heart disease, they go through a very difficult, tumultuous period over months and years. And actually now you start to realize that it affects your level of stress, anxiety, depression. In fact, now at Naluri, when we quantify it, right, we measure mental health and we measure physical health risk, and there's a very strong correlation. So people with diabetes or heart disease or cancer risk also have very high levels of stress, anxiety, depression. And there wasn't any meaningful way to provide that level of support. And if you don't provide that level of support, it actually doesn't make your physical health recovery easier. It actually makes it worse. So one was realizing that there's this gap. Why isn't that part of mental health for people who are going through chronic conditions being addressed? And then you start to realize, well, one reason, not that there are probably more, but one reason is we just don't have enough support, right? Mental health professionals, the supply is just not readily available, even here in Malaysia. So as a result, you either have to wait 9 to 12 months if you want to see someone in the public hospital, or you've got to pay a very big fee for every time you see someone in the private hospital or clinic session, right? And so I felt that the problem statement is there. It's a very real problem, and it's meaningful to me personally, right? Because of my family history.